And welcome to Podcrashed, the podcast that can be a bit of a shipwreck. Every week they talk to a different guest about life and liberty and the pursuit of things random. I only have one good eye and I can see how enjoyable this podcast is. I hope you enjoy it too. Arr.
Shut up, and sit down.
Okay, well, let's get going.
Okay. This is the hustle. Just clapping it. So for this episode, I thought it would be interesting to talk about common misconceptions and lies that are perpetrated through movies and television, i.e. things that you come into contact with in movies and TV shows that if you didn't know how the human race worked, if you didn't know how the world worked, you would assume were a lot more common things. Or you assumed were things that happened all the time or were important based solely on like how they're depicted in movies.
Yeah.
So I came up with a quick list, and so just add yours as you think of them. Does anyone have any that they think of right off the bat?
My first thought is anytime you see guns or bullet fire,
Yeah.
nothing about it is right.
No. People like get shot and like people will hear a gun go off near their head and be fine.
Yeah, you'll get shot, but like a small cigarette box or necklace or something, or Bible will
Yeah.
protect you from the bullet.
Yeah, and not cause any damage. Nothing.
Yeah,
damage
your clip
underneath.
will never run out if you're in a movie. For some reason, people just throw their weapons away when the clip runs out as opposed to reloading.
Yeah.
Just anything to do with it is wrong.
Yeah. People can pick up guns and they never have shot a gun before and immediately know what to do.
Immediately know how to. There's absolutely no kickback.
Nope.
For anybody. Automatic weapons never hit anybody, even though that shit just goes everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. You have to like really be able to.
Yeah, there's no
control
way
it.
you can dodge that like an automatic.
Yeah, I
weapon.
always like when people dodge bullets. Like
Yeah.
they're just like they run and it just like gets the back like the as they're running it's like the things behind
Or
them.
when they do when they tilt it to the side like gangster style.
Yeah.
That is horribly inaccurate. You
You
cannot
can't get
hit
control.
anything with that.
I like when they walk away from explosions.
Yeah, just a steady
Or as we determined in the last one, are fine with lava being near them.
Yeah.
They can outrun it fine.
Lava's cool. It's
And
just
they're
like
fine.
tinted water.
Yeah. It's just really, it's like hot. Like, don't put your hand on the stove. Don't touch lava.
Yeah, when really it's several thousand degrees,
Well, it melts-
emitting toxic fumes.
Melting the metal on the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't walk through it or anything.
Mm-hmm. What about you, April? Anything come to mind?
I had it for a second, and then it vanished.
We continued talking, and she didn't get a chance to say it.
Yep, pretty much.
And raise your hand like in school, like, oh, I have one. I have one.
It was something about it, like, like, cops are stupid, or they, like, if they come to your door and they, like, hey, we have a report that something's going on, and you can just say, nope, everything's fine.
Yeah,
They
did.
like stupidly turn
they
around.
don't do
okay,
their job.
We'll have a good day.
I put on my list that police will just show up and arrest the quote unquote bad guy at the end. Like they don't bother asking questions. They don't say like what's going on. They don't try to determine what the situation. They just like, oh, book him, officer, and they're like, okay, stranger who's not a police officer, I will just take your advice and arrest this person.
Yeah, they always have like Castle or like Monk or something where it's an outside party who does all the investigation of the clues. None of that stuff's admissible in court.
No.
That's a random author guy who just contaminated your scene.
Yeah.
Just because the author who's not a police officer finds the evidence or questions the witness, and the witness like tells
And there's
them.
a lot of breaking and entering done by people who are not police officers.
Psychic
with
detectives
no
cannot-
consequences.
can just not let themselves into people's houses. Well, I put the criminals will just admit their crimes when confronted with no evidence other than an elaborate story. And this is like the Murder, She Wrote style, which is used very often, where they just lay out what happened, and the criminal goes, I had to do it, but no, just say, that's a cool story,
evil
bro,
voice.
but it didn't happen that way, and I'm denying it. And they will be fine. Because, again, no evidence that can be, it's all just a theory.
Yeah. Also, they don't have to read you your Miranda rights when they arrest you, as long as they do it at some point before your trial.
Right. Oh, the amount of... And
Really?
Yeah.
And I get
You don't get one phone call either. They're not under any obligation to give you a phone call.
No, and they can detain you without actually charging you for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And, well, I learned this a lot from listening to a lot of the, like the criminal podcasts, is a lot of cases end up not going forward because of little inconsistencies that eventually make a difference in the case. Like, someone didn't have the right search and seizure thing to get evidence, or someone turned out this person used coercion to get the them to admit
Confession
they did.
or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah,
and,
a lot of
and
little
that
stuff.
can be as little as something as they you know hit them once, or like it
Yeah,
doesn't
that
have
whole
to be
good cop, bad cop thing is not a
you
thing.
can't beat someone with a telephone book and then have that anyone be like, yeah, that's a confession. No, you know what I mean? Like
They're totally fine. Yeah.
now they're like because they used to be able to do that where they could like back in the day, they could like arrest a 12-year-old and then hold him for 84 hours and not give him any food or water until he agreed to that he did the crime, and no one would, you know. But now they go above and beyond because they know that kind of stuff has happened. But yeah, in movies, you'd still expect them to be like, yeah, that's fine. That works.
It'll be okay.
So, a couple of them I have here. Okay, so you can afford a beautiful, spacious Manhattan apartment with no roommates on a salary that an assistant would make.
Yes.
Or a baker, or a florist, or whatever whimsical, fun job that the people have in city movies that make them tons of money because they can afford to live in this expensive-ass city.
Yeah, like the apartment on Friends.
Yeah.
Where I don't think she's even a chef.
She's
in
a
the beginning.
caterer.
She's
She
a
runs a
caterer.
catering company.
And the other one is literally unemployed for like 2 seasons.
Yeah, and then she's a waitress when she is employed at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much a waitress at a coffee shop makes.
Can't be that much. Even next to Central Park.
And it says and the other one, granted, okay, so Joey's an actor, so he might have an influx of quite a bit of income. But then that would be followed by when he's not working, he wouldn't have any income. Yeah. And Ross is a paleontologist. Yeah. I don't know what Chandler does.
I think it's something in insurance, but I think that one of the jokes is that you don't know what he does.
Yeah, like a Barney Stinson where it's like you just sign for him. Yeah, they pay me to sign things, kind of a...
Yeah.
Well, that was another show. They had this amazing apartment. She was a public school teacher.
Yeah.
He was an architect. Again, one of those flouncy jobs where apparently they make some tons of... If I didn't know any better, I'd say every single straight man in New York was an architect.
Yeah.
Every single straight woman, like, owned a bakery.
Yeah, we all make cupcakes.
Yeah. And their job is great, but they're just not happy because they don't have somebody to love them. Anyway. And then he was in law school.
Yeah, he was in law school.
Now, once he became a lawyer, I can imagine them making a lot of money.
But
But
he
he
was
was
a bunch of debt
literally,
for the first couple of years.
How much money do you spend? And he's from Minnesota, so his parents weren't paying for it. 'Cause
No.
they were like, you know,
even if they were Minnesota wealthy, they weren't paying for New
Super
York
wealthy.
law school.
yeah, Jesus, Columbia, or where are we supposed to go?
Yeah.
So people can, and they're always, even if they're supposed to be quote unquote poor, they have these amazing apartments with like all this room, and you're just like, no, you know what I mean? Like if you're doing okay for yourself, you can afford to pay, you know, $1,500. It's like a studio.
Yeah.
Your bed's in the same area as and it's not a loft with like all this space that you can like play
it is like one bedroom
tetherball in. No, it's
wide. Yeah.
super tiny. Okay. High school rites of passage, like prom, parties, tests, etc., are way more important and impactful than they really are in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's really, really into the big game and the dating the cheerleader.
If I don't do well on the
cares.
SATs, then my whole life will be... No.
No one
Most
thinks that.
colleges, unless you're trying to go to Yale, most colleges will let you in with a shitty SAT score.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when you took the SATs, ACTs, do you remember thinking, like, oh, this is really important, I need to do well, or were
I
you just
remember
kind
wanting
of...
to do well, but I still didn't do... I didn't do terrible, but I didn't do well, because I never did well at tests.
I did really well. I took the ACTs and the SATs. I did really well in the ACTs, and I did really horrible on the SATs.
Yeah.
So I literally burned my SATs because they were so bad I didn't want to tell anybody.
I didn't do...
I was just like, they never came. I don't know.
Yeah, and I went to a...
There's no record of these except the ones that I have.
And I went to a state university. You know, granted, I didn't try to go to a private college, and maybe it would have made a difference, but I went to a state university, and they were fine with my ACT scores.
I went to a state university for a year and then got into a private college, and they never even asked for any of my scores.
Yeah, I've never had it remarked upon ever after that.
Yeah, no.
And even then... I remember there was an option when I applied to Western where it was like you have to submit your scores. If your scores were on the lower side, you could optionally write an essay that would counterbalance your SAT or your ACT scores, and I didn't, and I still got it. Yeah, and then things like the parties, the weekend parties.
Yeah,
and
I
like,
expected a lot more like drunk blowouts.
yeah, no one ever had one of those crazy like 16 candle style where the next morning there's like, you know, people passed out and there's like weird stuff in the pool. And
Yeah, and the jock got off with the nerdy girl. And
Yeah.
John Hughes alone, really. Now, granted, that was the 80s, and I didn't go to high school until the early to, mid 2000s, but... but yeah, led me to believe there was... Now, maybe there was a little bit more of that stuff when they're longer...
Like pre-internet, I guess.
Yeah, like, maybe it was a little bit more wild, because
I never
people
saw
weren't
a
doing
whole
it.
lot of bullying either, and that seems to be a big thing in high school
movies.
Now, I'm not an adolescent boy. I never have been. But no football player I ever saw like
push you into a locker.
push someone into a locker and go geek or anything. Like no one's ever locked into
was
a
never,
locker.
It was never a Revenge of the Nerds style.
No.
The jocks always like bullied each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
They
and
messed
granted,
with each other.
we did go to a smaller school.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you went to one of those schools where you had thousands of kids there, it was a lot more niche.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone pretty much knew each other, because
Everyone's grown up with each other.
Yeah, and people were like cousins and stuff, so even if you weren't like friends, you were like, oh, that's my cousin, I can't really bully them, you know, that kind of thing.
I'll get back to my family.
But
my mom and dad
even
will find
so,
out. Yeah.
that kind of level that they make it out to be in movies is never...
Yeah, where there's a literal like a psychopath.
Yeah.
is the quarterback, and you're like nobody's doing anything about this.
Your Billy Zabka, Cobra Kai, were like
tried
trying
to
to
murder
you because you liked the guy's girlfriend. Yeah.
Or, well, like, also in movies, if there's a sports player, they always, like, oh, your grades are sucking? Well, I'm going to bully that, pressure the teacher into giving you a good grade. That does not happen.
The star of the school, no one really cares. I mean,
yeah.
You might have someone who does pretty well, and you'd be like, good job, kid, but yeah, it's never to degree
Yeah.
No.
Let's see, everyone has to tell each other news in person, and no one ever texts, calls, or emails unless it's pertinent in the scene.
That's
so,
fair.
like, if I had to, like, tell April about my new boyfriend or my new job, I'd have to, like, go and find her and tell her in person as opposed to, like, texting her or, like, waiting till we had, like, a lunch date or something.
It used to be
this
more
is much more prominent in TV, but also in movies.
I mean, it used to be more of a bigger thing. Like, if you want to tell someone something big, you find them and you tell them.
Yeah. I love the thing where
But-
they start a conversation and then it goes to the next scene and they're, like, driving. And it's clearly been... They had to stop the conversation in the living room, get into the car, drive several miles, and then continue the conversation.
And yet they pick it up
at
right
the
where
same
they
point.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you tell someone a story so elaborately that they, like, see it as you would see it. Like, like, so the details are so specific. And I'm like, I've met some people that are really good storytellers, and even that, it's like, you know, like, almost they're seeing your memory of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a joke in the TV show Happy Endings, which is no longer on, but was on a couple years ago, which I was a big fan of because it was kind of meta in the sense that it would point out the stupidity of some tropes about TV shows. Mm-hmm. And they had one where the one girl character, she gets a new boyfriend who's a secondary character. He's not in the main group. And he's like, let's go hang out with my friends. And she goes, oh, my friends are all busy. He goes, no, my friends. And she's like, oh, hang out with your friends. Like, because they never socialize with anyone outside of their group.
Uh-huh.
And then they go in and like, they're hanging out with his friends. And the one's like, she's like, oh, and then I found my birth mother. And they're all like, oh, and she goes, and then what? She goes, what do you mean? She's like, turned out she was like, you know, like a psychic or she was a con artist. And like, no, she was just a normal person. And she's like, no, but what's the funny story that happens after you discover that she's not your birth mother at all? And she was just like, no, like she keeps trying to find tropes. Mm-hmm. And there's one where he's like, you're really close with your friends. Like, do you ever like just text them or call them? Do you have to like find where they work in the middle of the day to tell them about your afternoon? She's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, just so many ridiculous things of like tropes of the TV shows and things like that about it.
Yeah, if you have a central group in a TV show or a movie, they never go outside. They never have other friends.
No, unless it plays into, again, the story role. Like, they invited the coworkers over and then turn out the coworker, like, has a crush on them and that and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. People can go hours/days/weeks without eating, sleeping, or pooping. This goes from back when we were talking Jurassic World, where they're stuck on a freighter for days. And I'm like, they're not worried about eating. They're not, like, hungry or malnourished by the time they get back, and, like, sleep deprived because they've literally slept slumped against the side of a...
Handcuffed, slumped against a cage of a sleeping dinosaur.
He's on a T-Rex.
or superhero movies, like, I get it, they're superheroes, but they're also humans. They, you can't tell me that Black Widow doesn't have to take that outfit out and shower after a couple of days and, like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah, she must be rank after a battle.
Yeah,
That's
and
all
they're all,
leather.
like, sweaty and gross, but they, like, have to, like, because, some of these movies, their plots are supposed to be, like, days and
the
weeks.
funk on that Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's just, like...
Well, you see him eat. You see Tony Stark eating all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
That's because they can't keep
just because
Robert
of Robert
Downey Jr. from eating.
He just brings stuff from the craft service into the
I've read
shop.
a lot of stuff about how he keeps, like, food on set hidden so he can eat.
Incorporated into the scene.
Meaningful conversations must happen in meaningful places, like rooftops stuck in the rain or fully clothed while sitting in a bathtub. And not in normal places like your living room, your car, or your kitchen.
Yeah.
Like, anytime you have a meaningful conversation, you tell someone you love them, it has to be during a rainstorm or on a rooftop where, even though you're on a rooftop on a skyscraper, the sound quality is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think you can really hear anything on the top of the Empire State Building.
No.
Much less Professions of Love.
I remember thinking that of that. What's the Just Friends, the Justin Timberlake, Mila Kunis one? Because they keep going up to the top of that building, and they were, like, on the top of the Hollywood sign. Like, they have a lot of high-altitude scenes in that movie, and they're, like, super clear, and they can hear
you get to the Hollywood sign?
No, you can get to the base, but you can't climb on it.
I didn't think you could. I know you can't get to, like, Mount Rushmore and stuff like that.
No.
A lot of, like, national monuments that you see people at, you can't actually get to.
Yeah, and even pre 9/11, a lot of these places you couldn't get access to. Like, you couldn't get to you haven't been able to get to the crown of the Statue of Liberty in, like, 40 years or something.
Right.
Like, they stopped doing that because it was so dangerous for people to be there.
I imagine after the first 20 people jumped off.
Yeah. After a couple people jump, you stop letting them up there.
That's another thing. When you jump off a building or whatever and land on garbage.
Oh, yeah, and you're fine.
I'm like, no, that's probably demonstratively worse for you than landing on the pavement.
One of my favorite scenes...
Or catch yourself on the scaffolding and, like, you're still gonna, like, pop a shoulder.
People's arm strength in movies is amazing.
Oh my God,
people, like, hang off of things and they, like, pull themselves. I'm like, I've never been able to pull my... I mean, even if I was thin, I don't think I'd be able to pull my own body weight over the side of something.
No.
Granted, I mean, I've watched, like, American Ninja Warrior Ninja Warrior, and there are some beastly people out there that can just, like, do one-handed pull-ups.
Yeah, and people like that exist, but those people are, like, people who train to be like that, not just, like, an average Joe who's being chased by somebody in, like, in a horror movie setting.
Well, average people don't look like The Rock ever either.
Yeah, no.
He's not like a forest ranger's not gonna look like that.
You know what I would do if I went to the public beach and he was the lifeguard? I don't know what I'd be like, oh my God, what? Yeah.
Also, on that note, shark attacks. I thought that was going to be more of a thing.
Yeah.
As a child, I was like, oh,
lot of
there's
animal
sharks
attacks.
everywhere.
A lot of animal attacks. Like, you'll come in contact with a mountain lion a lot more frequently than you think you would, and you have any sort of chance of getting away from the said animal. At that point, if it's going to get you, it's going to get you. Maybe if you're lucky, it decides to ignore you.
No, you're more likely to be attacked by a cocker spaniel than a wolf.
Yeah.
A wild horse will just let you walk up to it and go like, shh, it's okay, and jump on it and ride it away.
Yeah.
Like, no. Riding bareback as a thing is not...
No, jumping on a horse and just galloping away and like, holding its mane because it has no... Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That's not a thing.
But one of my... Back to the thing about jumping off buildings, one of my favorite scenes, even though I wasn't the movie itself is whatever, but there's a scene in the new guys? The Good Guys, the one with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, where they play the two desk jockeys.
Yeah,
is the beginning. It's The Rock and Sam Jackson, and they're the two like rogue cops that everyone thinks is great. And they're like chasing him, and they see him. They're like, "You got think of what I'm thinking," and they both jump off the building and die. And it's just like, that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah,
but they like think so highly of themselves.
Or there's like. I like that movie because it doesn't play up things because there's an explosion and it knocks them back and they're like, oh my gosh, this hurts so much.
Exactly.
How do people just walk away from this?
And he keeps getting his car stolen. The other things people park their cars, like there's always parking.
Yeah.
Especially in cities, there's always parking right in front of where you are and you never get towed or ticketed. You never come out and be like, damn it, I parked right here in this no parking zone.
Oh, and that weird keep your keys in the visor thing?
Yeah, who keeps their keys in the car? I don't know. I always hear people, though, in real life getting their cars stolen from gas stations because they keep their key in the ignition while they're pumping gas.
Yeah, who does that?
I lock that shit, even when I'm pumping gas, because I don't want anyone sneaking in there and getting my purse, you know?
No, yeah.
Anyway. Every time you use a public bathroom, something's going to happen.
That's true.
You're going to run into someone.
You're either going to have an embarrassing moment.
You hear a mob hit or something.
Yeah, you hear somebody die, somebody shows up, it's some sort of embarrassing moment of diarrhea, either you or somebody else, depending on the type of movie this is.
I mean, I've had my fair share of diarrhea moments in the public bathroom.
That's okay. This is so. This is a little bit of a off topic, but that's why I think when you go into a public restroom, there should be music like in the stalls. So you should be able to like put on like in the you should be able to put on like music. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Some
like,
countries have that where you can like play music to like hide the sounds of you peeing and stuff.
It's not as common anymore, but we used to go to the
just have a fountain.
Used to go to the music store, and they used to have those blocks where they were like a square, and you'd press the cover, and it would play like maybe 30 seconds of the song from the album.
Yeah.
And they should have like those where there's just different types, and you can literally just press the ones you want, and it would just make a sound, because I know everybody feels better when there's some kind of noise.
Yeah.
Which is why some people turn the faucet on. But if it's a public restroom, especially the ones that you tap and you don't have any control over.
Yeah. You're like, it won't go on. Am I dead?
And I shouldn't be encouraging people to waste water either by turning the faucet on to cover their sound.
I've been in there before, and like a group of girls came in, and like only one of them had to go to the bathroom, but the jobs of the other two were just to stand by the dryer and just smack the button.
Yeah. See, then I wonder why women go to restrooms in groups. And again, that's something that's more common in movies.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I ever... if someone says something, they're like, I gotta use the bathroom, sometimes you might be like, oh yeah, I'll go with you because I gotta go anyway. And I wasn't pressed for it, so I hadn't said anything about it. But, like, it's never like, I have to go to the bathroom and then expect someone to come with me.
Yeah.
Come with me.
Because I don't hang out in bathrooms.
No,
like,
a lot of people hang out in bathrooms.
Like, I go and I do my business and I leave. You know
even
what I mean?
in like high school tropes, too, everyone's hanging out in a bathroom all the time.
No, like, like smoking in a bathroom. I'm like, no, they put detectors in there. You can't smoke in a bathroom.
You can't smoke in a bathroom and not have anybody notice.
They need to have it where you go out and it's like down the street around the corner behind somebody's house.
Yeah, behind the church, which is where you're supposed to smoke.
Yeah, off property otherwise. Okay. You will have at least one make it or break it high stakes moment in your life where you're at your job or you're playing a sport or you're doing something and it's like everything's on you. Apparently,
it all comes down to this.
So you're playing, you have to win the big game, or you're working and NASA can only land the plane and save everybody if you are the one in control.
Yeah. Very rarely does it all come down to one singular person, one singular moment, I think.
Yeah. It's usually multiple people. And I don't know if it's that high stakes.
I've kind of been in that situation. But I mean, I work security, so if something happens, it's... And I was the senior person there, so I had to act right away.
But in certain careers and stuff, and in certain situations, and something. Movies always makes you think that regardless of what you're doing, that will happen.
You gotta win the big game, so then you can get into college.
Yeah, what'll be like?
You can pay for the operation, and
you took one CPR class, and then suddenly it's your responsibility to save someone's life in an elevator explosion or something. You know what I mean?
That's another thing. I've never been in an elevator where someone gives birth.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Pregnant women in elevators. If you're getting on an elevator and someone is pregnant, they will give birth in that elevator.
Even if that elevator has never been there before, Saved by the Bell.
I didn't even know they had multiple stories.
No, they don't. It does one story. School, and they have an elevator in one episode, so Belding's wife, who's never mentioned again, can give birth.
And he can name his son Zach. That's not creepy.
Yeah.
The relationships between young people and people that aren't their parents are always a lot more interesting.
That's true.
Like their relationships with their bosses or their teachers, and it's always
there's mentors everywhere. You just gotta find them. Apparently,
everyone has a Mr. Feeney who will follow them in every single grade level, and when they graduate, will follow them to college. And then they pointed out on the very last episode, goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I had a good relationship with most of my students. And they're like, no, you were friends with us. And he's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
One of my favorite things about Boy Meets World is that episode they graduate and they get all the people that have disappeared
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
the show. And they're like, oh, we're over there, meaning they're on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, we're over in
Oh,
that
we don't
hall.
go over there. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Turner. Yeah, that's what they...
That was one of my favorite
That show
things.
got more meta. I love a meta show because
Yeah,
they
I do
can
too.
pick fun of all the tropes of TV and movies and yeah.
Like Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like a good...
Good movie.
All will be forgiven after it is discovered that you've been telling an elaborate web of lies if you just say you're sorry.
I don't know how people manage a web of
They
lies.
do and
no.
it's not even important. It's usually not even important stuff. It's just super minute things. Like you meet someone and they're like, "What do you think of my shirt?" And you're like, "It's great." And then you have to tell a series of lies to keep that story alive, as opposed to just being like, "I don't like your shirt."
Yeah, it's always something like that doesn't need to be lied about too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your dad doesn't want to come to the wedding. Oh yeah, he's in Guam. He's a secret agent, and then they have to keep that up as opposed to just being like, yeah, I just made that up because I felt bad because he's a drunk or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like,
What's his name? It's table cup phone. Table cup phone. It's just like what?
And they have to find a homeless person to pretend to be their secret agent dad table cup phone.
Yep. That's how the world works.
Yeah.
There is no psychological repercussions to seeing your friends or family slaughtered in front of you, like in a horror movie.
That's true.
Oh.
Like, they never go on and, 10 months later and, visit that character. Occasionally, sometimes they do, but visit that character in, a psychic ward or psychiatric ward where they're like, yeah, I literally saw, my best friends murdered in campfire in front of me. I can't close my eyes without
Well, yeah, for
thinking
the
of it.
sequel, they always have new friends that are going to be murdered in front
Yeah,
of them.
and they never bring it up, and they're always like, wait, you were the girl that 4 months ago was in this, and she's like, yeah, but I dyed my hair, and I'm different now.
I'm a survivor
There's
now.
a couple of horror movies that, one of the things I liked about H2O, the Halloween, it was that she had all the years of, psychological damage where she would, see him and have to close her eyes and remind her that he's not alive. So, occasionally they'll touch on it, but it's not nearly enough. It's just...
If it's not part of the plot of the sequel, then it's not going to be mentioned.
It's just because in the height of the moment, they're just trying to get out. But when they get out, and it all sinks in what just happened to them, the PTSD that they would go through would just be insane.
Okay. Well, I have a one about how long can a human being hold their breath?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think tops, pearl divers or whatever could 5-6 minutes tops.
Yeah.
Certainly not long enough to swim down, break open a car, and get somebody out, and then
Give someone a breath of air.
Yeah, or
a
swim
kiss.
underneath the flaming water for a mile or through a tunnel, or I can't hold my breath for under a minute. I'm sure.
Well, they do say that you can hold your breath longer than you think you can, but it's not that length of time. It's like when you start to panic and you can keep holding your breath for a couple more seconds, but it's not before you actually suffocate or open your mouth and take in the water. But yeah, not the average person who's not trained probably less than 2 minutes, minute and a half maybe.
I would say the transfer whenever they do the oxygen transfer from the scuba mouthpiece thing from one person to another person or something. I don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because you'd have to. I think you take it in, but you can you have to blow air out to get all the water out of your mouth, basically.
Yeah. Wouldn't that mostly be carbon dioxide?
Yeah, because you'd be inhaling, and then you wouldn't have anywhere to exhale.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my point about water.
Well, we pointed out when we were talking before we started about the John Mulaney trope about quicksand. Mm-hmm. It's expected that you're gonna come into contact with quicksand a lot more in your life than you are. Yeah.
But the thing about quicksand though is you can walk on quicksand because it's essentially sand, a layer of thick layer of sand over water.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're fast enough, and you're not just standing there, because when you stand there, you sink, but only till you can float in the water. So you're not going to sink, indefinitely into quicksand. Yeah. And then you can just slowly work your way out of quicksand too.
As long as
it's
you
not
again,
nearly
hold
as
your
deadly
breath.
as
And they say if the quicksand's not if it's not super deep and you can tell because you'll hit water and you'll feel yourself getting wet, then you can lie on your back and float. Yeah. As long as it's not so deep it'll cover the width of your body or whatever. So even if you come in contact with it, it's not as deadly as they say it is.
Yeah.
cars don't automatically explode when they're caught on fire.
That's true.
That's true.
I've literally
Everything explodes when it's caught on fire. I know what you're talking about.
Well, no, because like there was just in town a week or two ago, like somehow a car caught on fire, and they showed the dash cam of the cop car that pulled up, and it's like fully engulfed.
I've seen that when
and they have enough time to like walk up, set up the hoses, spray it down.
When we used to live over around the corner there, I was coming back from Jackson with Justin, and we turn onto the street, and there's a car in the middle of the street just fully engulfed in flames. And we kind of slow down and we pull into the driveway, and we're like, nobody's around, so we're like, okay, so we call 911, and we're like, yeah, it's on this street, and she's like, okay. And she's real calm. And so we're like, okay, someone must have called it in. But then there's two guys that are right in front of the driveway, because it's in the street, but it's kind of near this driveway, and they're just staring at it. And then the fire truck comes up, parks, the guys get out, they get all their like, nobody's in a rush. It's just engulfed in flames, and they finally eventually put it out, and then the minute, like, they put it out, and not even like a minute goes by, and the two dudes come and they just push the remains of the car onto the driveway, like it was their car, and but they were so calm about the whole thing.
Obviously not the first
like
firefighter.
I was like, the firefighters I can understand because they've experienced, but the dudes, I'm like, I'd freak out if this was my car, because I wouldn't know. Now, maybe it didn't have any gas in the tank, and that's why they weren't worried, but yeah.
Well, the fumes burn, but gas doesn't burn.
Yeah.
It's the fumes that do it.
The only time I've ever heard of a car explosion nearby was when they had that horrible accident last winter or winter before on 94, but it was because the truck that crashed had fireworks on it.
Yeah.
And that was literally the only reason it exploded.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's because it was a fireworks truck. Yeah.
Yeah. Cars on fire, not as big of a problem as you'd think that would be.
Yeah.
Because instantly, like, whenever a car catches on fire, it's maybe like a minute or two before it explodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just enough
it's not
for
like,
you to get someone
I'm going to get burned
out.
alive. It is, no, it's going to explode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just long enough for you to get the person from behind the wheel and shimmy him out and pull him through the window, and then it explodes, and you're fine if you're near it as long as you're not in the car.
Yeah.
No one ever gets, like, burns or damage from being too close to it.
Like, damage,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, all alcoholic beverages burn in movies, and that's not the case in reality. If you've ever tried to set vodka on fire, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah, you can just make a Molotov cocktail from anything.
Yeah, it's just literally you just find a whiskey bottle and put a rag in it, and that's not that easy. I can barely light a candle sometimes. I'm not going to be able to light a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. Elizabeth found that out. You guys had a bonfire at our house, and me, Mom, and Dad were gone, and we came back, and there was a beer can in the fire, and this was, like, back in high school, and Dad, like, questioned Elizabeth about it, of course. She's like, oh, well, I thought it would catch on fire and, like, start the fire.
She probably lied, because I think she drank the beer.
I don't know.
He was probably just mad because he's like, it's not one of mine.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I found it. You know, you find it.
I found it.
Yeah,
it was
it's
just
the country.
growing.
It was just sitting in
Yeah,
the road.
I found it in the woods in a tree with some porno magazines from the 80s. Just weird things people hide in the woods.
Okay, speaking of violence, why do people in movies only attack you one by one?
Yeah.
You're up against a group of ninjas, and they just wait in a circle around you.
Yeah, they wait till the other, like, oh, now it's my, like, almost like it's a double dutch, like, jump rope. And like, okay, now's my chance to get in. You know, like, they're waiting for their moment.
They don't just punch you in the back of the head.
They don't all ambush you, which is what they would do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen a group of police officers take down someone after a car chase, they all just jump on them.
Yeah.
Get them down.
Hog tie them.
Yeah.
No matter what, yeah.
Montages.
The police never just calmly walk up and, like, cuff you either. They throw you on the ground.
Well,
yeah,
make
kick
sure
your head a couple times.
You're not packing or whatever. But yeah, montages, you can gain any skill in a matter of hours.
Minutes.
It's
hours.
supposed to...
Sorry. It's
Why
alright.
do you keep doing
I keep messing with the cord. I'm sorry.
It might be me. I might just tug it just enough.
We're all fidgeting today.
It's supposed to take you, 100 hours to master a skill, like piano or whatever. But as long as you run around town and up some stairs, you can box Apollo Creed.
I think isn't it 10,000 hours before,
Is it that?
before you're an expert at something?
I guess so, yeah.
It's 10,000 hours. which is like years of your time if you do it every day for so many hours. You can't become an expert cello player unless you spend 8 hours a day for 5 years.
Well, there are significantly less, what is the term, idiot savants in the world than movies would also have me believe.
Yeah, and you when you do find them, they're like average places, like the dude who works at the Best Buy with you, or the homeless guy on the street, are all like piano.
Yeah, it's not a useful
geniuses.
skill anyway.
No.
I keep expecting in my adult life to come across a hidden talent.
Yeah.
Like everybody just has a hidden talent. And I'm like, I'll just find mine. I'll be really good at it right away.
What's my hidden ability?
What about the common belief that when you have an accident, it comes out a talent? Now, I know that has people have discovered after like accidents with their brain that certain
brain
things
trauma,
but it's not nearly as common as they make it think that when you hit your head and then you can play the piano really well.
You lose motor function as opposed to gain a talent.
Or like my favorite, so they use those trope from like all the Lifetime movies where like you like get in a car accident and it affects your brain and then suddenly become an nymphomaniac. Yeah. Which was an actual plot of a Lifetime movie, I remember.
I know less nymphomaniacs than I thought I would. Based on 80s films.
Well, they call sex addicts now, right? Isn't that the go-to?
Everyone's a sex addict.
It's a lot easier to give up an addiction in movies and TV.
Yeah, that's true. You just go cold turkey for a couple of days.
Yeah, you go to like the Arizona desert into like a rehab facility and you like have inflection, you like write in your journal and you look out into this beautiful scenery and then you're fine and you don't go any periods where your body's like cold sweat, like withdrawing from a chemical substance.
If you come across it again, you just don't immediately want to snort it or drink it or whatever.
And if you die, it's because you wanted that one...
Dang it, that was me that time.
That was you that time.
Our headphones keep going in and out.
If you die, it's because you wanted that one last hit, not because your body just can't process going through withdrawal.
Yeah. Which they say is why people overdose after they get clean, is because they go and they do the exact amount they did before they got clean and their body's like, no. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like me taking it, never doing it before, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to just like,
slowly doing it. Let me see what other
crimes are usually planned out a lot better in TV and movies. When people want to murder somebody, it's usually a lot more thought out.
Yeah, there's more hitmen just around.
Yeah, when you want to rob a bank or a casino, you take all this time and you plot it out, and it always works. Even though I mean, there have been cases, obviously, but they're so few and far between. Most people just put on a ski mask or just walk into a bank and put a note and hope nobody says anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, most of murders are unsolved.
Yeah.
And most murders are also unplanned.
Yeah.
So provided you can get far enough away from the actual murder, you're probably not going to get caught.
Yeah.
And that's never addressed in a film.
Kind of like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if you can find a way, if you can murder someone who you have no direct connection with, it's really hard for them to figure it out because they look for people in that person's life.
Yeah. There's less semen on all crime scenes than I would have thought.
What's that line from Superbad where he's like one thing about being a cop that's different. He's like, semen. I thought there'd just be semen everywhere, and there'd be like a bank of semen that you could just compare the semen from the crime scene to.
Well, even if you find body fluids.
Unless the guy punches your face, jerks off, and runs away, we don't know who he is.
Well, unless you can find like DNA, but unless it's already in a system somewhere from a previous crime or. I don't know if you even have to submit DNA for like certain government jobs or whatever. Yeah. There's nothing they can do with that DNA.
Oh, and the amount of time and energy it takes an actual case as opposed to TV. Like TV, it's like they look at the photo of a crime scene and they go, oh, there it is, and then they immediately know what happened. Whereas you can take years and years and you have to like interview thousands of people and like double, triple check
I love
alibis.
It in things when you have like the people working on whatever case or mystery and then like a random like janitor comes in and it's like, his hat says such and such, and they're like, oh my god, like nobody put it together, and I'm like, I don't think that happened.
Oh yeah. Well, there have been a lot of questions lately on the blood spatter analysis to the point where they're starting to reopen cases that were the predominant evidence was blood splatter, and that because. Much like how they used to do where they used to, like, let everybody walk all over the crime scene and they didn't isolate things. They've gotten to the point where they, like, isolate things to the point where things can get, like, when they, like, run tests and stuff on a lot of crime scene, like, blood and data and stuff, like, it can get really, it can get mixed up and they don't. there's cause to believe that a lot of these
They've
cases...
taken so much evidence where it can get mixed up.
And then fingerprints is another one. They determined that fingerprints aren't as cut and dry as they think they are, so a lot of people who are... literally, the fingerprints at the scene of the crime is what put them away. Now they have to, like, open their cases again and look at it.
Yeah, they're not as different as people think they are, I guess.
Yeah, the technology in any sort of that kind of, or like being able to pull someone's face out of like a grainy surveillance footage and be like, and like pixelate it so they can see it clearly is not something that they can do.
Well, police lineups never work either.
No.
I've read statistics on that, and it's very unlikely that someone will be able to, remember a face and identify it amongst a group of people under pressure. It's very, very rare that. And then
in movies and TV, they always show the lineups, and the people in the lineups don't look like each other.
No.
And I'm like, well, yeah, if you got robbed and the guy who robbed you was a Caucasian man, but who's like kind of tall and maybe chubby, but then they have him next to like a skinny black guy, and like, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things you're gonna know. And you're like, why would you... The whole point was you put people who were similar to what they thought they would saw. So they, plot detail.
Or even, like victims don't remember everyone, or they're like their attacker or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to recall.
When I worked at the bank...
You fixate on something.
Yeah, when I worked at the bank, they had a very specific protocol for if you were ever robbed. And one was... after the robber leaves, you lock the door. Nobody's allowed to talk to each other. Someone calls the police or sets the button or whatever. You have to give everyone... There was a form that you had to give everybody in the building, and they all had to fill it out without talking. And it included what were they wearing, what did they look like, how tall were they, their hair color. And you weren't allowed to say anything because if you started talking about it, you could confuse other people's. Because someone could be like, oh my god, he had brown hair. And they're like, well, it was more of a dirty blonde. Well, I thought it was a red. Like, you'd start to mess with each other's memories. So you weren't allowed to discuss it at all to see how different people's view
perception
were. Because, and I'm... Even working at a job where you had to, like, be very vigilant of how people looked, I'm terrible at remembering people's faces.
Oh, yeah,
I have to see someone... I have to meet someone 4 or 5 times to really remember their name and their face.
Yeah.
I once hugged a complete stranger because I thought they looked like someone I knew and didn't realize till halfway through the hug. And then she obviously didn't realize that she didn't know me.
Yeah.
So I had to play it off as, like, customer service. It was real awkward.
Yeah. So it's like, it's very common for people to get confused and not remember details, even in the, especially when you're in the moment, like you're being attacked or robbed or whatever, because unless you make it a point to think, I have to remember this, you're not focused on it. You're focused on getting out or surviving or whatever.
Or most people like focus on the weapon.
Yeah.
So you can't tell much about the guy, but you can tell everything about the gun.
Yeah.
Well, I read something somewhere about how less guns are used in bank robberies than you'd think.
Yeah.
It's usually just somebody with a slip of paper.
Yeah.
It's just like, give me money.
A lot of people especially daily crimes that you encounter more frequently than like murders and things like that, are people who they want an outcome, but they don't, they want to go about it in the most peaceful way possible.
Yeah.
Because most people who commit crimes like robbery and stuff aren't violent people. They're somebody who really wants the outcome, which is money or goods or whatever. And so that's why things like burglary is more common, because we want the person not to be there. We want to go and we want to steal their stuff.
Yeah.
That's why home invasions aren't as common, because you don't want someone to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then you're more of a risk of getting caught. You're more of a risk of having to commit another crime like murdering or hurting somebody.
Well, criminals in movies are always gleefully happy to commit homicide.
Yeah.
People
it's like,
are a lot
yay,
more...
I get to kill people today. And you're like, I don't think
or
that's
it's right
the
away.
person.
It's like they don't, if they get caught in the house, they don't go, oh, no, I stop, I give up, or talk their way out of it.
They're always killing their associates to, like, prove a point. You're like, you can't kill everyone you work with. That's not going to help you.
A lot more people who are evil for the sake of being evil.
I didn't do it that time.
Yeah, you moved your hand and it moved the thing. They don't even notice, but it goes out for us. But yeah, so like, if you're now granted it's like superhero movies, but like your Joker, who really is just evil to be evil. He's not after money. He's not after whatever. He's obviously getting money so he can continue to do evil things. But this whole end goal is to just be a villain. I don't think that happens a lot with people.
No.
Your end goal is to get something, whether that's, money or freedom or whatever.
You're getting some sort of satisfaction out of everything.
I would argue most crime is just selfish behavior.
And a lot of people, I think, like you said, it's a crime of passion, so people do what they think is the right decision in the moment. They don't really think it out as much as they do in movies and TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like people who escape jail, who've already gotten caught, and they're like, well, my goal is to get out, and once I get out, I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's why people who get out of jail usually go back to jail.
Yeah, they usually get caught.
Know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or they, well, I mean, a lot of people, they've been in jail so long. It's like life. I feel like I saw that something where it's like life on the outside and inside, where it's like things were so much easier in jail. You're fed. You have a warm bed.
Yeah.
You know the rules, and like as soon as they get out of jail, it's all these social norms are not like used to. They're not. They don't know anything about the technology because they've been in jail so long.
They can't get jobs, so it's like supporting themselves and feeding themselves and having a place to stay isn't as easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people, and then those people will go and they'll be like, well, I want to go back to jail, so they'll try it again, commit as little a violent crime as they can, i.e. walk into a bank, slip a piece of paper, get some money, walk away, go down the street to their girlfriend's house and like take a nap because they want to get caught.
Yeah.
Which happened when I was working at the bank. It was the bank down the street that happened. It was robbed by the guy. The guy literally walked to his girlfriend's house down the street and went inside, just sat there till the police showed up because he wanted to go back to jail. Huh. He did as least violent as he thought he could to get away with it. So it happens, but yeah, not in movies. Movies, people want to get out.
Well,
and they want to
Orange is the New Black.
take over
They
the
did
world.
that then. Have you seen that show?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, Tasty.
Oh.
She gets out, but then like
Yeah.
a little like the next episode or two, she like shows up. She's like, "No, it was so hard out there."
Well, it's because the actress wanted to keep the gig.
Well, I mean, that it shows like
Yeah.
it's showing where real life people just like, no, it was easier to be in here than it is to be out in the real world. So
That's
I'm
true.
just gonna.
Well, I would argue that that's probably more of a realistic perception of what. Now they're not in high security; they're in minimum security, so they have a little bit more freedom. But I imagine that's a closer than a lot of like you see like movies, and it's like that escape one where they're in like that prison that's essentially just cubes.
Alcatraz.
And yeah, they're like in these really high, and like they have to come up with these plots that involve all this like hijacking and stuff in order to get out. And,
dig through the wall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not just cutting a fence or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or in a lot of cases, they just seduce a security guard, and the security guard lets them go, and then the security guard ends up going to jail.
Yeah.
Or they kill the security guard.
I used to work with a couple people who were retired security guards from the Jackson prison, and a lot of them were like, "Oh yeah, that's the number one thing in training is they tell you even if the you don't want to treat everybody terribly, but at the same time, you don't want them to think you're their friend.
Yeah,
and you don't want to view them like a friend because they are trying to manipulate you because they're
Well, they apparently have a really big problem with inner relationships between guards and
and the prisoners. So it's like you have to like a lot of things like when you're a doctor or you work for child, you have to like be able to put this space between you and this where you have to be compassionate, but at the same time you can't let your guard down.
Yeah.
Because then, bad things happen.
Then you get taken advantage of.
So. Yeah, police officers in TV shows are always really gullible, like detectives, like Law and Order.
Yeah.
SVU. Olivia's always sad that people are getting raped.
Yeah,
and I'm like
constantly explaining to Ice-T what sex crimes are.
It's like, dude, Ice-T, people, you meet sex crimes every single week, which, by the way, they always figure out and solve those crimes in a week. And they don't have any other crimes going on while they're solving that
The jurisdiction issue, especially on, like, Law and Order and stuff, if it's a sex crime unit and then they find out there's no sex crime, that it's just murder, they're done with that case.
Yeah, they're like, it's yours.
They're not solving that case at that point.
Can you imagine that's like a relief of like, oh god, I don't have to worry about this when someone else gets to do it. We found heroin in their pocket. That's drugs. Okay, go ahead, send it to them. Yeah. They were just waiting to give it away.
Next subject, I would say cultural aspects that you take for granted because you've seen them in films.
Okay, do you have an example?
Like Scottish people used to wear kilts.
Yes.
Scottish people have never worn kilts as a basic.
Really?
No, it's always been ceremonial, and it's only been ceremonial in the last 100 years.
Okay. Yeah, they wear it like weddings and things like that.
They never went into battle in kilts. They didn't spend their everyday life in kilts. Igloos. People who live in Alaska don't live in igloos. It's not how they live, like functioned. Ditto with a lot less teepees than you'd think in the world. Their teepees were strictly for nomadic societies. They weren't long-term by anything, and there were a lot less nomadic societies than you would have assumed from Westerns, essentially.
True, yeah.
Yeah. Also, Animal Kingdom stuff, like lemmings don't run off cliffs.
Oh, yeah. That was Disney made that up.
Yeah, Disney essentially forced a group of lemmings off a cliff and then told everybody that that's what lemmings do. They're just dumb and they run off cliffs. If one of the lemmings leads them off a cliff, they just all go.
So they're like cattle?
Yeah, which is not a thing. So. That's...
This one is a list of myths about American culture that you've learned from Hollywood. Everyone in the U.S. carries a gun.
Nope.
Yeah.
Most people, the people that have guns are really vocal about why they want to have guns and why they should have guns and shut up and don't tell them.
Yeah.
Most of them are in Texas.
But not a lot of them do. Well, there's so many. I think even as Americans, we underestimate the sheer amount of people we have in our country.
That's true.
So that it's always like, it seems like a huge, he's like, oh no, only a couple people do that. No, we have a lot of people. Like, Texas is a big fucking place. So even if only half of them had guns, that's a lot of fucking people.
Well, the people who do have guns tend to have lots of guns.
Yeah. It's never like, oh, just
stockpiles.
Very few people have like one just for protection. New York City is extremely dangerous. I mean, it's not more dangerous, I think, than a lot of cities.
No, if you're going,
cities,
percentage-wise, I think Chicago is up there.
Yeah, Detroit's up there. And again, it's per capita, so it doesn't depend on, it just depends on crimes per.
Yeah, what is it, Gary, Indiana or something?
Gary,
it's
Indiana,
the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, because it's small. There's very few people, but there's a lot of crime there.
They also have a lot of hospitals, though, so I don't know if they factor how many people die in hospitals from other areas into that.
Yeah. Anyone can go from rags to riches in the U.S. That's a misconception.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
It's really hard to become rich.
Yeah, getting out of your social class is almost impossible in any part of the world.
Yeah. Which is why a lot of times there's like this common belief that like groups of people are poor or not in a good economic environment because they're making bad choices. Like the idea that like, well, if, someone would argue like, well, if, Black people want better stature in life and they should just get better jobs. Well, if they don't have the access to education that white people have, that's not going to, it's like that misconception of like, you can just easily decide you want your life to be better and then make it happen. There's only so much internal drive that you can have before what you're met with is not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Most Americans want to live in the suburbs. Americans
live
love
in the suburbs.
I like the country more.
Yeah, I like the country more.
I like it more as I get older too. I mean, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, there's nothing around.
I can see having to live in the suburbs as opposed to inner city if you work in the city.
Because it's an
But I wouldn't just move into the suburbs to live in the suburbs by any means.
Yeah. That status or something.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where you are, because, like, I feel like if you're in kind of a rural area, living in the country is more of a luxury.
Yeah.
Because you have all this space, you have no neighbors, you have land.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're living in the city and your neighbors are kind of right there.
Yeah. To be a little bit more self-sufficient in the country. I mean, you don't have to, like, grow your own food, but at the same time, you have to take care of your area. You have to, like, if something happens, a lot of times you have to do your own
kind of on your own
repairs because you have to go so far to get someone, or having to get someone come out to you is really difficult.
Well, I think the states are portrayed as like New York, LA, and then the vast wasteland of country in between.
Well, you see it all the time when you see like people, you go to California, which is a huge state, but you always think of LA. And you think of, like, the beach towns.
Yeah, like, no, they're deserts and mountains.
And they do that thing where they're like, oh, you're from Michigan, so you're from Detroit. No, there's so much more. Yeah. Same thing with New York. You don't have to be from New York City to be from New York. There's a huge state. There's lots of other areas of New York.
Beautiful. Yeah, we drove through them.
Yeah. So, like, you go through and and even as an American, if you don't visit a lot of these places, you're always surprised when you come across, like, how...
Yeah.
Like, there are parts, like, when we've, like, been traveling, like, down south and stuff, you go through, like, the Rocky Mountains, and that's definitely a thing. But then you go through some other mountainous areas, and it looks like roads you drive around here in.
Yeah.
It's not, like, super drastic if you went to, like, Hawaii or something.
The only thing different I ever noticed is that they advertise for, like, lakes and their ponds.
Yeah.
But being from Michigan, everything looks like a puddle to me.
Because, because we have lakes that,
our lakes are
for
huge.
most intent purposes, look like an ocean because you can't see the other side. And, which is why I'm never excited about the ocean, because I'm like, but it's like a lake, only it's saltier, and there's like shit in there that can kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fine with a lake. Americans love cars. I blame the fact that other forms of transport aren't optional.
Yeah,
like,
we really
our
don't have
bus
a lot of
systems, our
public
train
transport.
systems aren't great, so we have to drive. Even if I would personally, if I had a choice between driving to work and taking like an interurban rail or something, I would take the train because
Well, even like air travel in the States is so much more expensive than you would get in Europe or Asia.
Yeah. In Europe, to take it's like $50. You get on a plane and you go from like England to France or something. Even though technically you can drive because there's the tunnel, but like to go from like Michigan to Florida, it's like $200.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
And you're like, but it's like literally just it's like an hour plane ride, 2 hours or whatever. Most Americans eat fast food for dinner.
I'd say lunch. Lunch is the biggest
It's a
thing for
convenience
that.
factor.
Yeah. I'm surprised at how many foreign countries don't really do lunch.
Yeah, it's like a big breakfast and like an early
snack.
dinner.
Yeah.
And then they have like a tea or something kind of in the middle, but it's never...
We're very set on the fact that we have to do lunch. We have to have a lunch.
Yeah.
Everyone has to have a lunch break.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to other
important.
countries where they just get out of work earlier.
Yeah. Which I would take.
Or they do that. Some places they do that thing where there's just between this hour and this hour,
siestas.
every place is closed. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, where they take like 2 hours in the middle of the day to just chill out and then open again at night when it's cooler.
That was that for that list, but
Yeah. I think you get the cultural stereotypes all over the place. I can think of like England, you always think of like posh or ghetto. There's no one else in England.
Yeah, they're either
a chav
or
they're
Cockney.
in the parliament.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or all French people are snooty. That's always a thing. They're all snooty and they're all having sex 24/7.
And they all go, ho, ho, ho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you have like even positive ones like Asian people are smart. All Asian people are doctors and scientists in our movies. They're all the smart ones.
Well, I mean, the exception to that is Ken Jeong, the actor, whatever, where he's an actor, but he got his doctorate, so he's also a doctor.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of like actors and celebrities who are like really smart, like who are like members of Mensa or have like Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah,
he's like a PhD in like nuclear physics or something that you're like, what? And he's the burly guy who's angry and things because he's from Russia, Ukraine, something like that.
Ukraine,
yeah.
And so they're like, oh, he's just a funny guy. Well, even Stallone there is a smart guy, and he always seems like an idiot because of the way he kind of
talks,
characters he plays.
Well, Mayim
Bialik.
Yeah, she's like, she did acting, then she went and she became a neurobiologist or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And then went back to acting.
Yeah.
So, there's...
She's the only one on that show that knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
The other ones just memorize the lines or like whatever.
They literally just made her what she does for her character. I feel like something keeps tapping me.
This one is 10 misconceptions about world culture. It doesn't specifically say movies and TV, but I can only imagine.
Yeah, that's where we get all of our culture. It's not like we're traveling around having misconceptions in person.
So this one is Australia was originally a penal colony for hardened criminals.
That's true, isn't it? That's true.
Many
originally
people,
it was settled.
There was, of course, Aboriginals
What
and stuff.
What Australians have quickly been discovering is that many of people who were sent to Australia as criminals were convicted of reasons that we would consider miscarriages of justice today. A large portion of them were children who stole small amounts of food, some of whom were condemned to hanging for their crimes before they got a chance to be exiled to Australia instead. Even among adults, many of those convicted only had been tried for what would be considered petty crimes today, and were also falsely accused. The truth is that the British Empire at the time had a lot of poor citizens who ended up on the wrong side of the law, mainly because of living on the margins and stealing food as their way to get by. So they decided to get rid of these people by sending them to an island across the world. So essentially, it was their way of getting rid of poor people.
Yeah, same thing when they have the Super Bowl and they bus everybody, all the homeless people out of the city
to make it look nicer.
Yeah.
Well, and then in England they
spiff up the city they did Detroit.
Like a lot of countries at the time, they used to have a thing where you would go to jail for a crime, but then you would have to pay to be in jail. And you couldn't pay to be in jail because you were poor for the first place because you were stealing food. So then when you got out of regular jail, you went to debtor's prison because you couldn't afford to pay for...
Yeah.
And now the only reason that doesn't happen, at least in the States, is because you get a job while you're in prison, but it pays so minimal, it only pretty much covers your cost of living. And then when you get out, you have virtually nothing.
But you learn a trade, you can get an education and
that's true.
Stuff now.
If you can
get
study
a free education.
Just like those, what's the ads where it's always the aggressive black guy and he's like, "Hey, I see you sitting on your couch, get an education." And I'm like, calm down, dude. Like, we're not all sad sacks, like lazy people. That's not the reason everybody doesn't go to college, dude.
Yeah.
Maybe they're smart and decided it's not worth the, debt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe they have a degree and it's not doing anything for them.
Yeah.
This one is, Japan is completely nuts about crazy anime and manga series.
I have heard that they hate that stuff.
Really?
It's like a niche part of the society, and they're just like, no, stop assuming that we all like tiny schoolgirls with big eyes.
Yeah.
Like, it's creepy.
Since they a lot of times they believe that many Japanese people don't even realize how much other countries are into anime and manga. The amount of money made selling anime and manga outside the country is an industry worth billions of dollars. While the international market is hugely growing in business, the Japanese demand for the same is actually slowly declining in the past few years. This means that despite their claims of those wacky Japanese, at this point, they are making these stories out for entertainment.
I did read a thing that we've crossed the threshold that now more white men know Japanese than Japanese people.
Really?
Because of the anime.
Because of the anime culture. Yeah.
Also, a lot of because we're at a big thing right now with cultural appropriation being really at the forefront of things, and and not to say that it's okay, but at the same time, I know that there's a lot of backlash with certain Asian cultural appropriations that a lot of times groups of Asian people have come out and said like, no, we like when people assimilate to our cultural developments because it's a way of people. So like for instance, there was a girl who got in trouble last year because she wore like a Asian inspired prom dress. It had the collar and it had the pattern, and people were like cultural appropriation. And there was like a group, and there were like I want to say it was like a Japanese group on campus who like were Japanese exchange, and they're like, no, we really like seeing
they want to spread
Americans
culture around
in
it's
our
part
culture
of their
because
society.
we get so much from American culture that we like that exchange of culture. So it's one of those things where it's like you really shouldn't jump the gun and assume that it's going to be a negative.
You can't ever speak for someone else's culture. You can't be outraged for someone else's culture.
That has happened. Oh my gosh. Bring that up. That's happened so many times on campus.
Yeah.
Where, like, literally a Chinese girl or, like, Asian girl got upset and offended because someone was wearing an sombrero. Not umbrero. An umbrero. Like, a white person was wearing a sombrero on, like, Cinco de Mayo. She got offended over that. It's like, it's not even your culture.
Like, it's first of all, if you're going to be a nitpick, let's nitpick on the fact that we celebrate Cinco de Mayo with not knowing anything about the history and also relating it to being drunk.
Yeah, it's
like,
just it's like
more
St. Patrick's
it's
Day,
like St.
where
Patrick's
we
Day.
just get drunk.
Get more upset about that. But yeah, at the same time, if you are just a straight up, it's like if I'm not going to have some other white person point out to me the cultural appropriation of another culture. If that culture itself has an issue, that's one thing. But if it's just you're outraged on their behalf, calm down.
Yeah.
I mean, calm down. Anyway, Canada is completely free, independent, and sovereign. While like in England, she always goes by ceremony and takes the recommendations of her government ministry's choice. She, which I assume they mean Canada, still gets to choose the people who are very high level of government positions. However, it goes beyond simply paying homage to old traditions. Everything in the country, including elections, are still called the Queen's name. Everyone must swear allegiance to the Queen, including all new citizens of Canada, who must accept the Queen as a living symbol of their country. So even though they're separate from England, they still very much hold the monarchy in their everyday
And even though they're predominantly, like, French, too.
Yeah, I imagine the French side probably don't care for the rest of them as far as because France has never been a huge fan of the English monarchy.
Yeah, they weren't even a fan of their own monarchy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, talk about a group that's like the extreme of like, yeah, you shouldn't lay back and let the government do what they want, but it's like you make any sort of wrong move as a government, and the French people are like, oh no, they're at your door.
Yeah, I just remember when they banned smoking in public places like a decade ago, and they had all these riots in the suburbs. People setting fires to SUVs and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, and you're like, well, the French, I guess, are passionate.
Yeah, even though, okay, so this is funny. This next one is the French are prone to collapse in a wave of surrender.
Oh.
Cheese-eating surrender monkeys is what Willie calls them in
that
the episode of The Simpsons.
Is that strictly out of like World War II where they were occupied, or is that...
Well, it says, okay, however, the truth is that the French are one of the most dangerous countries in the world and always have been. Many people don't realize that the defeat in World War II may have been a defeat for France's leadership and infrastructure, but that the French warriors never once stopped fighting.
Yeah, they had a large resistance.
France also has a long history of war and currently wields the third largest nuclear stockpile in the entire world.
Whoa.
The big two, the United States and Russia, and Korea soon, are the only countries that can boast a significantly bigger nuclear stockpile than France. And France still maintains one of the strongest and biggest stand-in armies in the world. While France has been choosing to pick their battles more carefully in recent years, the reputation shows that they are far from cowards and more that they are prepared for serious engagement. So again, like, we are going to be over here doing our thing, but if you fuck with us...
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying... I think should be more of a mentality of the United States. Not that I'm a fan of nuclear stockpile. However, instead of getting in other people's fucking business, maybe we should just... be here. Well, and, you know what I mean? Because people are like, oh no, if we take any sort of money out of our military, that means that people will fuck with us. No, we'll still have quite a bit in there.
Yeah, we spend a lot of money.
There's nothing wrong with kind of that idea of like, well, we're going to be peaceful with you, but don't fuck with us. And nobody comes over here anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, it's such a double-edged sword because like there's people that whenever like. Everyone wants us to stay out of war, stay out of combat, stay out of situations. But then if something is going on, I feel like there's like Americans are like, why aren't we helping this? Why aren't we doing this? But then we get involved, and then everyone's mad that we're involved.
Yeah, and a lot of times we get involved because at the end of the day, it's something has to do with money.
Yeah, it benefits us.
You know what I mean? Like, we can sin behind... You know, we got involved in Vietnam because we said we didn't want them to become communists because we hate communism, even though... it's self-destructive, so there's no point in fighting it because it's not going to work anyway. But either way, we got into the barrage that, like, oh, we just want to keep them from being communist. Even though the Vietnamese people really didn't care that much, right? They could have fought their own civil war over it. But at the end, but then you find out, oh, well, there was all this issues with arms dealing and all this kind of stuff, and they wanted this to happen, and it all comes down to money at the end of the day, and we utilize, oh, well, we need to help this, Saudi Arabia because of blah, blah, blah. No, it's because they have oil.
Yeah.
We need to protect ours. And that's why when people go, we shouldn't be fighting a war overseas when people over here are starving. I was like, yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, we're doing it because it's our best interest.
We're cleaning up our own dirty diaper.
Yeah. It's just a series of bad decisions that have led to other bad decisions that we're trying to fix.
So if you look back through history, so often the people that become our enemies and a problem for us, we have armed against another group.
Yeah.
So they're fighting, we arm one side, and then they take care of that side, and then they rise up and they turn against us.
Yeah, we
then we have to arm another group to fight them, and it's just like we create our own problems.
Yeah, we do it with invasive species too.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to get rid of this fish. We better introduce this fish. Oh no, this fish is eating all of okay, we better introduce this plant life, and then that's
that's killing everything else.
Yeah.
The last one I wanted to mention, just because I think it's interesting, is the German people are mostly humorless.
I like Henning Wehn is a very, very funny German comedian.
Flula is hilarious.
So they do have comedy.
It says, the truth is that Germany has a rich history of comedy, but that the style is so far removed from traditional British and even American comedy that it's hard to translate the style. The style of stand-up comedy we are used to is pretty much foreign concept when first introduced to Germany. The Germans had complicated theater styles show in order to impart comedy that would be hard for other cultures to understand. The other issue is that many countries consider most known for their humor tend to use a lot of wordplay that German audiences would struggle with, and the complicated form of German humor also would not translate well for audiences from other countries. Comedy, unfortunately, is one of those things that has easily become lost in translation, which is the opposite of what Eddie Izzard claims.
Yeah.
He claims that you can be funny in any language, in the same humor in any language. But you're right, a lot of it's wordplay or has a lot to do with our linguistics. And that's really hard for people who don't speak English because English is so overly complicated.
Translate it's weird,
You know, we have a really difficult language. We have way too many words. We're constantly developing slang terms and redefining words that already have meanings. It's really hard for people to learn, and that's why I applaud anyone who can learn English as a second language, particularly if your first language is so far removed. Like, if you speak anything that's not, like, Latin-based, like, you know, Spanish and French and German, you know, it's kind of similar in some of it. You can kind of see some of
the base is there.
Yeah, because it's a Latin base, like we're Latin and, based. But if you speak like Mandarin and you can learn English, you know what I mean? Like,
good for you.
It's just So I can concede why that would be hard to translate.
Definitely.
But they do have comedy there, and also I imagine they probably they're very self-aware people, and I think because to this day they'll still like apologize for World War II, even though nobody who's alive was really involved. Anymore.
It wasn't the population of the country of Germany that's responsible for World War II.
They're kind of the opposite of America in that sense, where they openly admit to the flaws in their history, whereas America tries to cover them. Oh no, I didn't do anything to the Native Americans, so why should I have to be sad about it? You know what I mean? Like. So it's that idea that they're very, I don't want to say self-deprecating, but they're fully aware of their history, and they're fine with admitting it and talking about it. And I think a lot of times in that sense, that means there's less ha-ha in their culture because they're okay with the feeling of, you know, with different feelings as opposed to us where we're like, no, we have to laugh because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Make me laugh so I don't have to think about the sad stuff.
Please help me.
So. Okay. Anyway, any last thoughts?
A deep shame for being American.
Kind of ended on a
low note there.
Anything to tie it back into movies and TV?
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
Yeah. Well, in the end, people are just people. You can't really define them as a whole group just because they're in a particular place.
If all of your lessons in life come from entertainment, then you need to really figure some shit out.
Just assume you're being lied to on all corners of your knowledge until you meet someone from that place.
Never go into a movie that is quote-unquote based on true events assuming that it's real. Now, even if it's a history, I'm sorry, but Tom Cruise never tried to murder Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's pulled from elements of history, but it's never that cut and dry. So don't assume. It's funny because when they had in 2012, when they had the 100th year anniversary of the Titanic sinking, the amount of people, granted, these were all people under the age of 20, that thought it was just a movie and didn't realize it was based on a true event.
Should do a culling.
You know what I mean? So it's that idea that, like, don't put all your stock in just the entertainment. Read books, read articles.
Go outside yourself to learn things. Don't just wait for it to come to you.
Talk to people if they have experience with it. If you know someone in your life, especially an older person that was there during significant events in history, ask them about it. They may be like, I don't know, I lived in Michigan at the time. I didn't know what happened, but I wasn't paying attention. But occasionally they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember watching the news and this happened. And
most of what I know about the Korean War comes from my conversations I've had with Grandpa.
Yeah. So,
because I didn't learn any of that shit in school.
No, because again, we gloss over certain aspects of our history in high school and in middle school and things like that. So, so never assume that everything, just what you're getting from entertainment is going to be...
At the end of the day, it's for entertainment value only.
Yeah, even documentaries always take with a grain of salt because...
Except that Mr. Rogers one, because he's a beautiful snowflake, and I will fight anyone who says anything different.
Mr. Rogers! Yeah. He taught me a lot about... mostly emotional.
Did he just have a problem with alcohol, or what did he get in trouble with?
No, he didn't get in trouble for anything.
I thought he was
a beautiful man who never did anything wrong. He just wanted everybody to be happy and knowledgeable.
He didn't have... I want to say I think he was probably in the service as a young guy, but I don't think he ever did anything.
Yeah, he was in the military. I think Navy,
back when you really didn't have a choice.
Yeah, but he just genuinely wanted kids to be happy and to learn things.
Yeah, he wanted to break down barriers and wash his feet with a black man in 1960 when that wasn't legal.
Yeah.
He wanted to scrub his feet with a black man?
There was a mailman character who was black, and he would show up, and there was a hot day, and they both put their feet in a kiddie pool, and he did it because it had happened because all these people were kicking black people out of public pools and throwing like acid and stuff in pools when they were in there and things. Yeah. So it was like a direct like, oh, screw you guys, we're gonna have two people, different races, in a pool together.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be a big deal. It's just gonna happen, and then we're gonna move on.
And it was one of those little things that like when you watch it in reruns in the 1990 doesn't seem like a big deal, but at the time was like a huge like fuck you to this racist culture, and he did it the best way he could with
the nicest rebel ever.
Love. Everybody love.
When you're sad, think of Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Donka
bitches.
Thanks for listening to Podcrashed. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Podcrashed Podcast. You can also check out our website at www.podcrashed.wordpress.com. Email us at podcrashed@gmail.com. We promise to answer your questions. Theme song is by Creo. New episodes come out on Tuesdays. And as always, Donka bitches.